Cool. So I would like the speakers to introduce themselves. Feel welcome to say whatever you need in order to arrive here, to feel grounded in this space. And I also really welcome you to say a few words in your native language if that helps with that process. It's an invitation. Yes. Would you like to start?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you for coming here. My name is Jonas Kittelsen. I'm a part of the Nordic Youth Biodiversity Network through the Nordic Council. And that's kind of under Gibbon as well, which is the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. So I'm here to represent that. I'm also a Norwegian environmental and climate activist in many different initiatives, both on lawful side and but also on the more activistic and civil disobedience side of it. Feeling grounded. I must. There's a disclaimer here. I was asked to come here like literally 1 hour ago because the one who was supposed to speak couldn't come. So I've just been thrown in here, but I hope I can do my best. So,
Thank you. Thank you for jumping in. Really appreciate.
We'll try.
So my name is Yokoru. I am from Canada and Japan. Need to say 2 countries. I'm with the Stockholm Plus 50 Youth Task Force with Dalia. So I'm also with the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, but Canadian chapter. And so basically, I'm here for the Stockholm Plus 50 conference and. Yes, that's it for now.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Dalia Marquez. I am from Venezuela and also from Colombia. I live in the border between Venezuela and Colombia, in reality. As professional, I am lawyer, but since I was a child, I am like a kind of environmental activist. So now, as a lawyer, I am advocating for the protection of the right that we have of a human right to have a healthy environment. Therefore, I am here. I belong to the Youth Task Force Stockholm Plus 50. Also, I am the global focal point for sustainable consumption and production in the UNEP major group of children and youth. And I represent an NGO that I founded when I have 19 years old. The name of that NGO is Juventud Unida en Acción in Spanish. Is Youth United in Action, and it's my pleasure and an honor to be here sharing with all of you. Thank you.
Wow, you've done so much, Dalia. My name is Hanna Soldal, and I work for Church of Sweden Youth, so the Children's and Youth Organization of Church of Sweden, and I work as a coordinator of youth participation and global advocacy. And my background is that I'm a biologist, and I've also studied a master in ethnobotany, which is the relationship between humans and nature, you could say, or humans and plants. It's like interdisciplinary biology and anthropology. So I love everything that's part of nature. And climate justice and environmental justice has always been very close to my heart since I was a child as well. But I'm also a person of faith. I'm a Christian, and I'm so happy that I get to combine these interests since Church of Sweden and Church of Sweden Youth at least try to become climate neutral and really want to advocate for climate justice. And of course, Church of Sweden Youth has also taken a stand for Ecocide Law. So that's why I'm here today.
Yes. Thank you. Welcome to all of you. So I think to start with, I would like to give very briefly a bit of a background, maybe just a show of hand of who has heard of Ecocide and Ecocide Law, because if so, then maybe I don't need to do it as much. Okay, so there is a few people, so I will do a kind of summary, very brief. So ecocide is a term that describes mass destruction to ecosystems in the same way that you have genocide for populations, then ecocide is for ecosystems. And the whole purpose of this global campaign is to make it a crime at the International Criminal Court. So to amend the Rome Statute, which is really one of the most powerful legal documents in the world because it's connected with the criminal justice systems of 123 countries. So it's like a fast track into changing the law in most countries on Earth. And the power of this is that it creates a global legislation which is really important because most of the harm is committed by transnational corporations who kind of disregard national policies and rules. And the campaign has been running for quite some time. It was co-founded by two incredible powerhouse, Polly Higgins and Giorgio Metta. And we now have teams in, I'm losing track of the number of countries. It just keeps growing every month. And Ecocide has been talked at parliamentary and governmental level in around 20 countries now. And again, it's something that is really growing incrementally. And we work with really all sectors of society, so faith leaders, as has been mentioned, obviously policymakers, lawyers, corporate leaders, indigenous representatives, and youth delegates. And yeah, it's been really inspiring to work more closely with some young people, especially members of the Youth Task Force. So I would like to give an invitation to maybe share some of the work behind the policy paper, because very notably, criminalising ecocide is one of the key demands in there. And then I think it would be quite interesting as well to hear about the Youth Environmental Assembly and some of the things that Hannah was sharing a bit earlier at another event we did around the Ecocide Law legacy. Because basically, it's been 50 years since the 1972 first UN Environmental Assembly, where the Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme first used the word ecocide in a world diplomatic stage. He was referencing the Agent Orange pouring over the Vietnamese forest used by the USA warplanes. So there is like a potency in kind of honoring his legacy today, and especially as young people to really bring this forward and really use this momentum to push for change. So I would love to hear from, because you've been doing the work very much directly with all the youth representatives. Yeah, so share whatever you feel.
Oh, okay. So first of all, I have to explain what is the Youth Task Force Stockholm Plus 50. It's a group component by young people from around the world, representative of different youth constituencies around all the world. So we are like 60 young people, and we have been doing the last months, all this year, consultations to know what are the requirements that young people have around the world in different countries to the decision makers and the governments to bring all those requirements here in something that we call it the policy paper. One of the main issues there in the policy paper is the requirement to recognize ecocide as a crime in the Rome Statute. This is amazing because when I start to participate in the different consultations, I was there with the idea to highlight the necessity that we have about the recognition of the ecocide as a crime against humanity, because it's totally linked with human rights. But when I see in the consultation different young people from different regions, Latin America, Europe, North America, Africa, all the regions asking the same, I realized that it's a real necessity. Now, after 3 consultations and others, local consultation in countries and regional consultation in each region, we have our 3rd draft policy paper. Do you want to add something?
So basically, the process of this policy paper, so I'm going a different route, is that this policy paper had like a collection from different youth organizations in their policy recommendations, like all putting together. And there are like over 100, like 200 comments from different people. So the point of this policy paper is to show to high-level representatives at high-level organization conferences. So for example, we showed like the first draft at UNEA, like United Nations Environmental Assembly in Nairobi back in late February to early March. And then after some input from those high-level government and officials, and now we have been also collecting more like afterwards, and then we have recently just finalized our 3rd draft, which is for Stockholm Plus 50. And so the the main goal is really to go beyond Stockholm Plus 50 and really have a different, like a unique perspective, and really to engage both young people and high-level people to really have a meaningful engagement, like the power in youth, to all these different generations, especially future generations. We're doing something.
Yeah. Thank you. Hannah, I don't know if you also were at the Youth Environmental Assembly today.
I were,
Yeah.
but I haven't been involved in the youth task force, so I cannot comment on that process.
But I think the youth task force is one of these groups, or almost like institutionalized processes. But I think so the Youth Environment Assembly is like another access into creating agency for young people to be listened by politicians. So if you would like to share a bit as well.
Yeah, and on that, like Ecocide highlights kind of how our society works, because there's a reason why mass destruction of ecosystems are not criminalized. It's because we don't value them. It's because of our very anthropocentric value systems. So ecocide is not simply about having a law and going after the bad guys, so to speak. It's actually looking more deeply at ontologies and epistemologies and how we relate to nature and harmonize. And that's also like the deeper foundation of why this is important. And it also reflects well who has power in this society, because it's quantifiable. You can extract natural resources, and that's very profitable. And if it's profitable, there's a strong interest not wanting wanted to be criminalized. So that's the forces we're standing up against, obviously. But that's also why it's so important to have inclusive processes when you bring this type of justice into these processes, because this is about justice. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, just tell something about today. Yeah, I think it was the first day of the youth pre-assembly to Stockholm Plus 50, and it was really inspiring. I think some of the participants are here tonight, and just to see young people from all over the world who want to make a change, I think that gave me some sense of hope. And speaking of these issues, it's not always that you can remain hopeful, or at least, I mean, I'm happy because I tend to find hope again, and I think otherwise it would be really hard, an even harder struggle. But today, definitely, I felt so much joy, like, wow, we're so many, and from all over the world, and wanting the same thing. And I think it also, because we were visited by the Swedish environmental minister, Annika Strandhäll, and then I also felt like we're such a strong force here, questioning the politicians, like questioning what they do. And we didn't get like those straight answers maybe that we wanted. For example, I asked her, like, why haven't you taken a clear standpoint when it comes to ecocide? Because I don't think that they have from the Swedish government side. And she replied something quite vague, but at least she said that, okay, we believe that this will be talked about during Stockholm Plus 50, and we will, lift this issue, or I don't know what she said literally, but like something like that. Not that, we will stand behind Ecocide Law, but like we will do something, she said. And I think at least she said she will do something, so then if she doesn't do that, if she does nothing, we can at least tell her that. And also, I also highlighted that this is something that we've lifted in every consultation that I've been to, every like position paper. This is something that the youth movement clearly wants and prioritizes. And from the government side, they often say, we listen to the youth, like youth is our focus area to work on. So then I think, I hope that they will shape up and actually, do what they've told us. And at least, she got to hear it once again. So that was good, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the louder and the stronger we talk on some of these issues, the more likely we can be heard. Yeah. And I had a similar experience being at COI 16, which is the youth assembly around COP. And I'm usually the kind of person to talk about ecocide. And then in one of the first plenary, I saw there was another, also French girl actually, who raised her hand and brought up as one of the topics. So it's really great to see more and more people being educated on this topic. And even, I think we still have a lot to go. There is still a lot of people who had never heard of it. But they also kind of get it quite quickly. They get the importance and they get the relevance of it. So I'm really curious in your particular areas of work. So there is someone working in faith and more kind of like religious area. Dalia, who's trained in human rights and legal affairs. Yoko, maybe more in conservation. And from what I gather from you, maybe like biodiversity. Like, how do you see the relevance of having an international crime of ecocide in your own field, in your own work? I don't know if Dalia, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can. So, when we think about human rights and peace, sustainable peace, I realize that at this moment we don't have it. We cannot talk about sustainable peace or the respectful of human rights if we don't have environmental justice. So now at this moment we are seeing different kind of actions that cause real damage against environment, damaging our common home, this planet. We see the victims without any place to go to ask for any kind of indemnization or any kind of justice. So what's happened with that people, with that victims? By example, I want to bring here the Bhopal chemical catastrophe. It's like 30 years ago or more, and the victims are some deaths, others dealing and facing with the consequence of that ecocide. So we don't have environmental justice. If we really want the respectful of human rights, we need to start to recognize the right to have a healthy environment as a human right. And if we really want to guarantee that human right, we need to have the possibility to give some institutions to people that are victims of this kind of terrible situation and crimes. So, in my personal perspective, when I was working on my master degree thesis, I was focused on the ecocide. What is the meaning of ecocide and how to face this situation? I see the international court as the best possibility, because there is an institution where the people can go ask for justice. That institution have all the financial requirements, all the structures, is something that we already have it. So why not just recognize the ecocide as a crime against humanity? Because ecocide causes damage against environment. But environment at the same time, it's something that affects our life, affects our peace, our right to development, to work, to live, to have health, everything. So therefore, as a lawyer focused on environmental law, I think this is our best option to have an alternative to look or to start to look for environmental justice. And also to ensure security, because at the end, if this kind of crimes are happening, we are losing our common home. We don't have a planet B, no. This is the only planet that we have. And we need to take care of it. So that's my opinion.
Who? Should I follow? So the question was like, why is this important to me from my background? Well, I was kind of like thrown into the ecocide movement, you could say, because my organization, Church of Sweden Youth, took an official stand on our like yearly meeting. Our members decided we should stand behind this, and we should, highlight it, and we should try to affect Church of Sweden, like the bishops, one is here today, to take a stand for ecocide as well. And since my job is mainly to, follow the members' will and try to organize our our members and young volunteers and everyone. So we joined actually. We got contacted. I think as soon as we took that decision, we were contacted by Ecocide Sweden, who were very keen on making us join an initiative called Faith for Ecocide Law. Which is this interfaith, like different religions, different faith traditions joining up for Ecocide Law. So I joined that launch, and I got so inspired because there were, like all sorts of religious voices. There were Catholic Christians, there were Muslim Jews, there were Maori, Sami people. Like there were this great hub of different faith and cultural traditions who all united behind this law. And when we spoke, it didn't feel odd at all. I mean, I think interreligious dialogue is always a good thing, and also peace building thing, and creating a good society and a more united world. But here was so clear that even though our religions might seem very different, they all in some way hold this message of that the creation, the world, this earth, that it's holy and something that we should nurture, that we should protect. And obviously you can read the Bible in many different ways. Some people want to read it more like, okay, so this was made for us and we can do whatever we want with it. But there's also a different part of Genesis telling us that no, this is something that you're set here to take care of, to be like a gardener of. And I liked the gardener profile more than the exploiter one. And I don't know, since then I've been part of many different discussions and also became a member of Ecocide Sweden privately. So I think to me this was just so clear, like of course, why isn't this an international crime already? It's crazy. And also it became really, it wasn't hard at all to find, the arguments from within my religion and my faith, because, I think that's the answer to the first question. Yes.
So I will talk about conservation, like more like natural conservation, environmental conservation. So when we talk about conservation, I think obviously most people will think about like environmental conservation, like about like remote, like all the like trees where animals live, wildlife. But conservation really also has an effect in cities as well, because like when it comes to urban, like there's also like micro ecosystems, for example. Like for example, where we in our house, like there's also like spiders, like insects. And so basically microorganism, like that's like invisible, but it's really also is important to consider. And so there's also like for conservation, there's also like this energy sector, like how like we use all this energy, but they also have like also invisible force, like the noise pollution. Like for example, I mean, we're talking about ecocide, of course. I'm going to a bit into biodiversity a little bit. So I saw this in the news that there were high level of dolphins and whales wash up on the coast of Ukraine, like than before, because like the things due to the war. Yes, that's what I'm just reading what the newspaper said. And so noise pollution, like because the whales and dolphins, they use the echo in the water, so it's really affecting the noise part. So it's kind of interesting in a way. And so when it comes to conservation, like we really need to think basically, like in summary, systematically. That so our actions is also have effect on conservation, like in a broad way, like air pollution is also, for example, really affecting the air quality that we inhale, also animals, but you just don't know the effect. And there's also agriculture, like they say sustainable agriculture or agroforestry, they're really important for like sustainability, like long term. But then agriculture, even though it can be sustainable, it also has an effect on like soil biodiversity and soil like long term. So it's like nothing's perfect. So we need to think like more in a bigger picture, and really like have to compromise things. Yeah. I mean, a very generic way, but yes, that's all.
Yeah. So, you know, the rate of biodiversity loss is really daunting, and Ecocide could potentially stop some of it. But also the activist in me wants to also go more into the particularities of Ecocide, because it really depends what type of Ecocide we get. Because let's say if you look at the reviews within European reviews, if it seems like if we get Ecocide, the threshold will be very high. And it has to be like a nexus, a direct causal link between a company actually destroying a specific area. So there's you have X is destroying B. Maybe we can have Ecocide. There are so many unsustainable practices that will not get covered by that and get legitimacy. So if you really look at the structural forces of what's causing biodiversity loss, you can get like rid of the worst of it, which is super good, and we should really push for that. But also really understanding, trying also to get that threshold as low as possible, so it can actually be substantive. And the second thing I really want to highlight, which is also, you know, just about justice, is that we need a Ecocide which is global and consistent. Because I want to take an example. Equinor, I'm from Norway, and Equinor, they are investing in fracking in Vaca Muerta in Argentina on indigenous land. And you know, that's insane to do in Europe. You can't do that in Europe because it will make like headlines and people would go crazy. But they do that on indigenous land in the global south. So you cannot have rules for companies, especially in the global north and countries like Norway, extracting natural resources and money out of them, and then the rules does apply within the European region but not in the south. It has to be compliant. So that's also a huge issue, I think, for us to Ecocide to really make sure that so it's not just enough to get an Ecocide out there. It has to be substantial when it comes to, and that's why you need obviously inclusive processes. And the proposals are super good. It's just whether those in power will maybe take some fractions of what we mean by Ecocide and then watering it out. And that's also something we should be vocal about, that we're not accepting that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point on how we as Westerners set different standards than what happens elsewhere, and like it works with extracting, like pushing our waste away or pollution or all the extractive industries. It's a continuation of colonialism, which is something that is very often said in, you know, conferences around social and climate justice by people of color and indigenous people, that the level of CO2 emissions that we have and all the different shades and forms of ecocide are very much related to colonialism, as well as, you know, patriarchy and a lot of oppressive structure that we are still under. So yeah, and you're kind of like slightly transitioning into the next question I have. No, it's great. Which is because you all come from different countries. So obviously we are aiming for this global law, but it will take the leadership of each country to go and vote in favor of it and then to implement it into its national legislation. So I'm really curious to hear in each of your country, and if you have a foot in different country, that you can share that as well. But yeah, what do you see as the main challenges? And if that's okay, maybe we can go in line like this and end with Sweden, because I think there is, as you briefly mentioned before, there is quite interesting developments. So yeah, what do you see as main challenges, and what do you see as like maybe the most important points of pressure, so that the government will, you know, vote in favor of amending the Rome Statute?
Well, Norway is, branded as green, but when you really get into what we're standing for, it's quite shocking. One of the more shocking thing is that we're being vocal about not recognizing the right to a healthy environment in the UN. And the reason for that is because an organizations I've been to have sued the Norwegian government for their oil exploration, which is just insane because they're going to hand out 53 new oil licenses this year. Now they're having a new oil field in the north that's going to constitute 50 coal plants, or 4 times the emissions of Norway's annual emissions. So they're like, we're going to do this, and that's by no means complying with the right to a healthy environment. So that's it's really difficult to get Norway to just recognize our right to a healthy environment for children and to get Ecocide, because they know it will lead to a lot of suing here and there, because their climate policies, and especially oil exploration, is just not there. So it's been actively top down saying we can't do that. So I think it's very difficult to get Norway on board because they're afraid of being sued. But that can change if you obviously get a new government. But it has large parliamentary support to stop this. So, yeah, but that's how it is. I think that's important as well to say that that's what it looks like when you actually is at the table and listen what Norway actually is, and not just looking at we are sustainable and we are green cars and these things. So, yeah, it doesn't look too well.
Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah, I must say Canada is probably the same situation as Norway. Canada is very huge on oil and gas extraction, especially the Alberta province. It's quite common in global north countries that extraction, the pipeline. For example, my university, Summer Fraser University, they have something called Trans Mountain Pipeline. That it was like a big problem when I was in university, which is kind of over 10 years ago, and they still haven't fixed the problem now. And now they have all these students lobbying on the campus. And yes, and so this pipeline is not just about how it's really going from one country to another country, but it's also affecting transnational agreements and the problems across different borders, which is a huge problem because that makes it more difficult to cooperate between different countries, multilateralism, and it's as he said, Norway, the different have also Stantec, which is I believe it's an American company, that they also have like Equinor, they have different mining operations, oil and gas operations in South America, also affecting indigenous peoples, displacing them to move to more remote areas. So it's some issue. Yeah, really same. This is nothing much to comment on.
Well, in Venezuela, ecocide is like a kind of new topic. People don't know too much there about what means ecocide. So I want to talk about a general view in Latin America. I think that the most difficult thing is that the recognition of ecocide in the Rome Statute and of this crime as a crime against humanity is something that could affect some economical interest from countries and transnational, because as you know, there is a lot of different big companies with extractive activities in Latin America, and at the same time, the governments, of course, have benefits from that kind of activities. So what I am thinking as an activist to try to solve this idea is show them that in Latin America we have the Inter-American Court. There, the Inter-American Court recognized the right of a healthy environment. So, if people face environmental damage, can go to the International Inter-American Court to try to find justice. But this process is too long, takes like 20 years. So at the end, that is not justice. So what I am trying to do to solve this idea to governments is now the country not will be under persecution. It's the big company. It's the person that takes the decision that at the end comes with the ecocide. So that's my strategy, to try to show this like a good idea to governments beyond the economical interest. I hope it works. I hope.
Yeah. So in Sweden, I mean, the government is obviously very aware of what ecocide is. They can't have missed it. And I think also it's become more and more well known through media and such, especially now before Stockholm Plus 50, that there's been a few big articles in big newspapers and such. And also I think the End Ecocide Sweden movement is growing and such. But to me, I don't know, I really hope that the government will stand behind an ecocide law, but I also see, I mean, today, for example, the minister, as I said before, she was asked about this, and she said that, we hesitate because of the Rome statue, maybe we can't open it, and but she also said, but if we have enough support, and I think, okay, we sit here, we talk about this all the time. Obviously, there is, at least in the civil society, definitely support for this. But we'll see. But I also think about their own interests. For example, there's been many highlighted issues debates in the Swedish society regarding the Swedish mining in north of Sweden, in the Sami land, which is threatening both the ecosystems, but also their traditional lifestyle with the reindeer. And so it's, to me, that's a clear example of ecocide, but it's also violating their rights as an indigenous group. So it has many different aspects to it, and that has been sanctioned by the government. There's another minister who said recently, I love mines, I love mining in public, which it's not I don't know, not that hopeful maybe from this perspective. At the same time, we are the host country for Stockholm Plus 50, which should, motivate them to at least look good globally. And Sweden is often talking about itself as, we're the good student, or like the best in our class when it comes to environment and such. But we've also seen that the ambitions have actually decreased now during the last year. So I think it's more important than ever that we as youth, but also the civil society, that we, keep reminding them, or pointing at, look what you're doing now. This doesn't resemble with what you try to communicate to us. We can't just accept it. And I think it's important also that we as religious actors, as I said before, Church of Sweden has done a lot when it comes to climate, but we still have a lot to do. We own a lot of forests, for example, which we've been criticized for how the forestry is undertaken, but that will also be actually now, due to also the public opinion and people advocating for this will also be they will look over how this is being done. So I think it's always, we should just never keep quiet. We should just keep on talking about this, and hopefully they will understand that, okay, it's safe to, they have the, because politicians, they want people to vote for them. So they want to know that there is a public opinion regarding this, even though, I think it should be, they shouldn't need that. They should just do it because it's the best option. But yeah, I think that's how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. This also identifying as a young person this feeling of like putting as much pressure as possible on our leaders, while also observing that they seem to be going in the complete wrong direction again and again and again. But then you're like, I just can't give up. I have to keep, shouting at them or talking with them diplomatically, like some of you are doing, which I don't know if I could do that. But yeah, it's like, and being remembered of all these injustices, I think now that we are, very connected as well through social media, and we don't see only what's happening in our country. We are a global youth community, and we really relate with some of the stuff that's happening with indigenous youth and black people and people of color really all around the world. And I think it's really important to remember that an ecocide law is one piece of an ecosystem of solutions. It's one piece of the puzzle. And it's been really amazing to see some young people, I'm kind of losing the count as well, but like I know it has happened in Australia, in Germany, in the Netherlands, in France, taking their governments to court. So that's like another way to mobilize, to really like put them in front of the ball. And there is also some really powerful divestment campaigns from a lot of universities, and I know them especially in North America, and Canada has been quite on the forefront of that. And the rights of nature, obviously, which isn't necessarily led by youth, but that's also starting to kind of like grow like a mycelium, like mushroom popping all around the world. So yeah, I think I don't know, I struggle. I'm honest with you, like every now and then just being kind of like on the front line of this ecocide news and kind of like tapping into the grief and the trauma of what we're seeing. But what keeps me going is, being with other young people and beyond, like different kind of generations, and remembering that we have these different strategies, these different solutions that we can build and grow stronger together. And I think, as you said, Hannah, we have to have some hope and we have to have some faith that this is going to work. Also because some people have worked before us. So for me, there is also something of continuing the legacy, and also being quite privileged of being, middle class, educated, white person. Activism is kind of like a hobby, like I can choose to be an activist or not. So there is a sense of responsibility that goes with that privilege that feels really, really important to carry forward. And I have one last question for you before we open for some questions and interactions, which is very much on that hope feeling, like what would the world look like with ecocide law in place? Because I think sometimes it's really, it's difficult to forget where we're heading, what's the vision. And if we keep dreaming and if we keep manifesting this, then we will make it a little bit closer to it happening. And I'm asking this question, and then it's also a potentiality for anyone, especially the young people in the room. I will let you decide if you associate as a young person, because I'm not going to make assumption here. But yeah, based on those understandings, like what would the world look like with ecocide law in place? Whoever wants to start, go for it.
Well, it will be a long process. I mean, even with ecocide in the Rome Statute as a crime against humanity, the International Court will have the duty to start to create like a whole normative around that crime. So at the beginning, some of the companies that used to take decisions that came with ecocide will be more careful to avoid the possible consequences. But I mean, I am helpful, I have hope, of course, but these legal processes takes a lot of time. This will be our first step, and our duty will push for the use of that amazing crime there in the Rome Statute. But now we have to start to teach, especially the vulnerable communities, how to go and ask for justice in the International Court, because in most of cases, the most affected are vulnerable communities, all of us. said at least one time indigenous communities, indigenous people. So that is one of the most affected groups by ecocide. Also we have women, children and youth, rural communities, etc. So we need to start to teach them and to create capacity building, to let them know that they have a new alternative, how to collect the information to go to that huge institution and try to close and remove the barriers to be there in the international court. Because the victims of genocide face that kind of barriers. And of course, the victims of ecocide will face the same barriers. So our duty will be capacity building, inform the people, and start to work, making possible to bring the different cases to the international court.
Yeah. And I just want to build a little bit on your point, Dalia, on how, because you have the legal perspective, but what I want to add to the audience is how it's even though it might not be into law until quite some years, it's really already starting to shift the corporate practices. Like there was the statement released just before COP26 by, I'm not good with numbers, but it's called the International Corporate Governance Network, who holds trillion of assets. And they were saying they are asking governments to mandate towards criminalising ecocide because they realize that a lot of their assets will be stranded. And so some people from the finance sector and the corporate industry are starting to understand that this is on the horizon and this is coming. And even though it won't be in law until a little while, like really it's starting to shift some of the behavior and some of the practices. So I just wanted to add that to the picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I continue? Mm-hmm. I think, it's hard. I think I will take a different perspective than it's better. But because you covered that so well, what will actually happen. But, I hope this will happen too. I think that from my religious perspective, I hope that it will be even more natural in the future for religious institutions and actors to work as environmental protectors and to speak of ecocide, to teach about it, to inform about it. I listened to this priest once who said, like, what if we actually treated this earth as if we believed that God created it? What if we actually treated it as something holy, something that, you know, should be set on the finest table, not like, I don't know, thrown there like garbage? What if we treated it as something valuable, like this treasure that, you know, you will never get that type of treasure again? And I really hope that that ecocide, that it will, you know, change the narrative, the values, the image of what's okay and not okay when it comes to you know, treating ecosystems, treating the earth, and also hopefully, as I think you mentioned it, Luis, like the rights of nature, to just value nature in a different way. Like that these different species, like how if it's an elephant or a micro, I don't know, like a bacteria, like they all have their own worth. They're all, from my perspective, they're all created by the same God as I am, and we should all have equal rights. Then obviously I have gotten a different brain compared to a bacteria, which maybe gives me a great responsibility then to not, I don't know, destroy the bacteria's ecosystem. So yeah, I don't know if that was in any way, in any sense clear, but I just hope that in a world of ecocide that we will just all take more responsibility of ecocide being a crime, I mean. And that obviously no ecocide will be performed ever again. That would be the utopia, yes. The Garden of Eden. Yeah.
Let's go there. Yeah, that's the aim. Thank you.
Sure. I am also coming. I'm also going with different perspective.
Great, bring it on.
So, so the definition of ecocide, I think it's very important because like I don't have a background on this. So in my perspectives, ecocide really should include all levels of destruction. So for example, I'm with the Sustainable Ocean Alliance. They deal with deep sea mining this year. So based on what I'm talking with the Ecocide group, the deep sea mining might not be part of Ecocide, but in my perspective, it should be. It should be all scales, not just large scale, because if we just concentrate on a large scale, then it's really huge destruction. But if we also if we focus on smaller scale, it definitely has an effect on a different scales, but also long term. So always the large scale is more short term, but also long term. But they're both connected to each other. So for me, Ecocide Law. So I'm gonna be maybe a little bit controversial, but the knowledge training, this kind of capacity building, so it might not be enough. I think it's also important to really focus on business, and it's not just public, but business and government, offer both informal and formal education, transformative education. But then it's not enough, in my opinion, because in my opinion, it should be more, the policy side should be more legalized, more legally binding. I think education is important, but since ecocide is a much, much larger scale, it's just not many people know what ecocide means. And so I think it's really important to define ecocide at a more broad level. And maybe really start this term from a elementary school level. So choosing also learn this term from really younger age, so they can think about when they become longer term. So yeah, that's it for now.
Yeah, I envision, a multinational company sitting there having a meeting, and then they're having this project. Oh, this looks good. And then there's this one lawyer in the back and saying, "Guys, there's something called ecocide. You don't go there. It's a complete legal mess." That to me is when ecocide really comes into effect, when they realize that we want to do this, but we shouldn't, because it will cause so much bad reputation and PR, but also legal consequences. It will be a mess. That's when it really starts going. And opposing these projects, especially in marginalized countries, it's so resourceful. It's really violent. If we can stop a lot of projects in this way, we save so much violence and trauma towards marginalized communities. And I think that's really where the huge benefit lies here and why we're fighting for it. Because we can indirectly, without taking all the fights, because the fight is costing so much. That's when it really becomes, constructive, substantive, something that's really important. Yeah.
Yes, I very like this picture that you put there. I like to see that. Amazing. So I would like to, maybe we do a little round of applause. I love applause. Thank you, everyone. Always shakes the energy and wakes people who are maybe snoozing in the corner or something. So I would like to open the floor, especially to young people. I also recognize some faces that I've either seen active on social media or at some other events. But yeah, so one of the intention behind this event is to launch something called #YouthForEcocideLaw. I don't know if Angus, could you give me one of the posters? Kind of show it. Thank you. Don't know if the camera will catch that. We can try. So, yeah, the idea is really to because I was brainstorming with different friends. I'm based in the UK, and I'm quite close with some of the people who kind of were at the beginning of Extinction Rebellion, the youth part of Extinction Rebellion in the UK. And I was asking them, okay, what do you think about this? I'm going and organizing this panel, and I wanted to have some suggestions from them. And so I think there is quite a lot of tiredness in like starting yet another initiative and yet another project and yet another group to join. There is already like youth, Youth for Climate, which is more like grassroots activism group, Youth for Nature, SDG Youth, all of the UN group that I don't know the names of. But so I was trying to think, like, instead of asking young people to kind of join yet another group, what else can we put out there in place? So the idea behind this Youth for Ecocide Law is to create a platform to empower young people to learn about ecocide and then bring them into their own fields, into their own area. As you probably heard today, there is a wide range of diversity in terms of origin, in terms of work and backgrounds. And this is what makes us strong, is that we each come with our unique gifts and capacities and knowledge, and the more we can learn on these very important topics that kind of bridge us all together, the more we will feel connected and hopefully lobby those politicians. So I would love to hear from some of the young people here. We have, I think I'm going to ask you, Angus, to maybe go around with the spare mic that is on the chair. And maybe, I don't really have a question, but it's more, what has this awoken for you, this discussion today? What's moving in you, and what do you see? Okay, I do have a question. What do you see as the potential of this law for as a youth person? Yeah, and I want to say your voice is going to be recorded, so yeah.
I can say something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Maybe also if people can say their name and if they want the kind of affiliation or whatever they want.
Hi, my name is Maximo. I'm from planet Earth, specifically from Argentina. And I'm part of a youth movement called Ecohouse Global and several federations and governments, youth consultancies, like that is said?
Yeah.
Okay. Advisory groups and etc. I'm working since 17 years old, since I was 17 years old, in this similar type of concepts, bringing them to different tables. And it's like a thing, I don't know if it's more like a reflection, what I'm doing, no? Probably almost everything that we have in this room, I am wearing Nike shoes. This, I don't know the brand, but it's one of the common brands. Also this, all this technology comes from Ecocide. So all that we have in this room. So I'm totally supporting the concept. I'm totally supporting that we should do something about this, but also understand that the transformation will leave a lot of people behind if we do not do it in a just transitional way. We are in a hurry, yes. Some of us has a more radical and apocalyptical speech, some less radical and apocalyptical. The apocalypse is totally subjective, because if you ask to a species that went extinct like a month ago, that probably we didn't discover it yet, but we are extinct in species that we didn't discover, it's apocalypse for that species. For human beings, I live in a country where half of population is poor. We work in vulnerable neighborhoods every day. I see apocalypses every day. A lot of injustice. a lot. I can give a million examples. But also I understand that our society today, as it is, depends on ecocide. Literally. I'm an oncology patient, I'm recovering, and I got 60 chemotherapies last year, and everything that was in that hospital had ecocide, had blood of the ecosystems. And now I'm alive because of that. Wait, I am not like saying go for it. What I'm trying to say is that we all have to be involved and work together. It's not like they are the bad people, we are the good people. I don't believe that is like that. Of course, there are some small group of people that has a lot of power and a lot of resources, and they accumulate that. But in the last 13 years, I realized, sitting down with every actor possible, high level of the world and the lowest level, like with this, we shouldn't say it like that. And it's not the decision of one person. It's not like that. And also, I don't believe that right now we have the answer for sustainable development. There's not only one way to fix this or do this or regenerate. There's not only one, because the only thing we have in common is diversity. That's the only thing we have in common. We have different cultures, different physics, energy, mind, experience, faith, backgrounds, education, ecosystems are surrounding us, etc. So, if we want to take the ecocide discussion where we need to take it and the different governments of the world embrace it, we also should do a huge effort that a lot of us are doing it today to connect the consequences of the ecocide and the understanding of that word with the economical system. If we do not put the externalities, if we do not insert the value of the ecosystemical services, like that, it says in English? Okay.
Ecosystem services.
Okay, ecosystem services. Or benefits, I like to say, because if not services, it's like they are bringing services to us, what are a company. No, they are benefits. So, if we do not insert that in the economical equation, in the cost of buying this, it's very difficult that with this system, that is a trade system, production, consumption, and a currency that makes that, it's very difficult to actually get the justice that we want. Because as our colleague said, in Latin America, we worked many years for our first international treatment of the region. It's called Escazú Agreement. That gives access, for example, to justice. Access to justice. I was in the first COP a couple of weeks ago, COP 1 of Escazú. As COP 26 of climate change, we have the COP 1 of Escazú. And what is justice? If a total forest is deforested with all the species and all the connections and all the ecosystemic services and benefits that are there, it's killed, ecocide, okay? And the community that lives next to the forest now have water issues because a big rain comes and it's flooded. That happened to friends of mine, 50,000 people in Argentina, for example. They lost their whole life there. If one person goes to jail, that's justice. So it's revenge, or they can recover what they lost. The species that went extinct in the forest can be restored. We are doing this for us, for them, because we understand the interdependency that is in a forest or a jungle and the millions of connections that are there. So we need to spread the word, I believe, with total humbleness, focusing in education a lot, in solutions and alternatives also. So think in the solutions and alternatives and how something like this could affect the whole system, the whole economy, the whole chain. Because some people live and need this system right now and they cannot change it. Especially in third world countries. We see this every day. When we talk about climate change to someone that he didn't ate in 2 days, and I'm talking about climate change. Sorry, I'm too long? Okay. So it's amazing, the campaign. We are totally on board with the concept. Let's see the way to reach the different people that we are talking to. Adapting the message. It's different to talk in schools, it's different to talk to politicians, it's different to talk to a company about this. And also, my humble opinion in communication, because we work in communication for sustainability, we need to see how we are going to say these things, the form, the manners we are going to use. Because nowadays, we are a lot that understand something like this, but a lot of people see hippies, sees people that says, Ecocide, what's that? We reject a lot of people. And that lot of people is almost the majority of the citizens of the main cities. So we need to see how we connect all this stuff just to move forward and accomplish the goal. Go Ecocide Law. Okay?
Completamente máximo tu mensaje. Máximo.
Small reflection.
Well, big reflection. Why do you minimize it? Thank you so much.
Sorry if it doesn't go with something that we were talking here. Just I throw like the challenge that we have in front of us. That is big one. We have a lot of laws, for example, in Argentina. We have written several of them. And the implementation is the problem. Mm-hmm. That's always the problem, the implementation. We have a climate change law, a forest law. Now, environmental education law, we participate 10 years doing that. And none of them are being
Put in place.
put in place.
Yeah.
None of them. You analyze one. And now we have the plastic-free one-use law that we want to pass. The environmental impact assessment law. It's very important for the ecocide to take in place. But if we pass that law in a country where half of the population is poor and it works in this system, for example, no more buildings and construction. 1 year they will need to do a real environmental impact assessment, interdisciplinary, with public audiences, and I'm a neighbor and I'm going to say, hey, no, you are now the sun is not reaching my house. So the value of my house is going to be lower. So I don't want that building. So the 40 construction people that's going to work there, they will not construct. And 20% of the employment in Latin America and the Caribbean comes from the construction sector, direct and indirect. So we know how to change that, because the LEED certification is not the answer for the ecocide. It's a path. It's like where we start. but to stop the ecocide, really, really, everywhere. I don't want you to start talking about plant-based food, but
Thank you so much. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it felt like you brought some different points that we haven't touched on. Yeah, and yeah, I think the core of it is really capacity building and yeah, raising awareness and finding the right language, as you said. Is any of the other people in the inner circle would like to share some thoughts? Yeah? Angus, do you mind?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Iris Elmer, or Iris for those who don't speak Swedish. I'm a climate activist, first and foremost, mainly with Fältbiologerna, which is a Swedish youth environment organization. I work mainly with forests and against unsustainable forestry. And a bit on the topic of what the world would look like if we had some kind of actually useful ecocide law in place, because I think that's a very interesting perspective, that it could just be a new way to greenwash things. So that you need to do it correctly. But I was in a lecture today with at the youth forum with a guy from Kenya, or no, Jamaica, right? I think so.
No, he was. Yeah.
And so he spoke when he was opening the lecture about how when he was flying in over Sweden, he was so surprised to see so much lush green forest. And as someone who does biological stock taking of endangered species, I was kind of silently heartbroken that that was what he took away from that experience. And I understand him, because if you don't know what to look for at a distance, pine and spruce plantations and natural forests look very similar. But the fact that I think, like, as rich countries, we do a lot of shitty things abroad, but we also do a lot of shitty things on our land, or in this case, lands that we have stolen from indigenous groups. And yeah, just the fact that we're like taking leadership whilst also literally having less natural forest left than Brazil does, like less percentage. And so I think what I'm getting at is kind of that I think we need ecocide to stop large and small scale destruction, because, like you said, apocalypse is very, very subjective. Like, even if you only clear cut 20 acres, that may be apocalyptic for species living there or reindeer herders in the area. And I think we need to take that into account, because for everybody's sake, and a bit also because I am sick of planning to go to stock taking somewhere only to get there and find clear cuts. And counting like annual rings on tree stumps and realizing that they were over 200 years old and still only at the beginning of their lives is very depressing. So I think this cannot be get done fast enough, but at the same time I am increasingly worried that it will only be a new means of greenwashing. And with that very depressing note, I'll pass the mic on, I think.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh. So, hi everybody. My name is Eden. I'm not a politician, kind of, but I am with the Green Party youth organization here in Stockholm. And I think my reflection of today, and I was also at the Ecocide event earlier, I think my reflection is that I'm getting angry because I'm from a party that actually stands for everything you say and everything you do, and I get so angry that you all can work together as from all different kind of organizations, but the politician world is so we cannot agree on anything together, and I think that makes me angry that we cannot just admit that this is something we have to work with together. This is not we're supposed to get votes. We're supposed to save something, save the world, save our generation, and it makes me super, super angry, especially hearing today, as I said, that we cannot work together. That is not that I'm the only politician youth from the only politician youth program that is sitting in this room, and I think that is so sad because I think this is a question that it doesn't matter what kind of politicians think you have, what opinion you have otherwise. This is something that we should work with together, and yeah, I'm really sad that there is no other politician youth young person who's sitting in this room and listening to this thing, because I think if I went to my colleagues, not in my party but in other parties, they would what is ecocide? How does that work? Or maybe say, oh no, we don't believe in that, and then they go out and they say, oh, we should change the world and we should change other countries and change the sorry, I'm real tired today. But that we should change the other, they are bigger countries like China and America, who is making it impact on the climate, but they don't want to talk about the ecocide, who would actually stop that thing. But they want to speak how they should change, how they should help out change the other countries. And I mean, that's just absurd to me that that the ecocide isn't there in their minds. Because if they were talking about it like that, I think people would also have what was I saying? I think people will have a more oh yeah, but you want to change the other countries through the Ecocide Law. I think that would make so much change, and yeah, I think that's.
Thank you. So I'm so glad to see the mic going around. I just want to give a bit of consciousness of time, because it's probably been a long day for some of you. So yeah, I'm really welcoming contributions, and yeah, conscious of time. Thank you.
So my name is Luva, and I'm from the Nordic Youth Biodiversity Network. And I think I would go back to your original question, what would it look like in a way we actually legalize ecocide? And of course, it would be a legal tool to actually be able to prevent actions happening, which could be ecocide. But hopefully, it would also talk about the righteous nature in us, really into a moral and philosophical exchange, actually have rights of the ecosystem in the Rome Statute was one of the most heavy legislation tool we have in the world. So that we could see a change in that direction, even if it's law, but if you see change where it's not okay, it's not legal to do that. And then it starts going on to like, oh, we humans are actually part of nature. We see we have rules what is okay to do to humans, but we also have rules what is okay to do to nature, and assigning, yeah, like we humans are one species among everyone else. So I want to see some moral change going in that direction, which will help. Because a lot of times you talk about, oh, we have so like 1 million species risk to go extinct. But then we always place as human as like not part of that ecosystem itself. But yeah, thanks for a really good discussion, everyone.
Any of you guys want to?
I mean, I can say something quickly. Yeah. Yes, my name is Gustav, and I'm also from the Nordic Youth Biodiversity Network. Yeah, no, like when I first heard of Ecocide, I think it was 2 years ago. It was new to me, and I thought like this is only for like extremists or hippies. But it was also like this is the holy grail. Like holy shit, this will actually work. But now, like 2 years on, I think Ecocide is more known. The awareness is much larger. But it also like has maybe lowered my a little bit, or the image about it being such a perfect tool has also like been a little bit more dimmed. As we've spoken about here, like it will probably not solve all the problems, and it will be like really hard to implement it actually. Like what does it mean to put a value on nature, which it will become like, and the potential risk of if there is a limit, then you can of course maximize it, and then many who wouldn't take that much like space or exploitation before might now understand, okay, I can go this far, let's do it, which might have like a bad consequence into it. So I think as youth, since it's a sort of youth event, it is one another like global institution that you're supposed to engage in, and it can be very like abstract and difficult. But at the same time, it's one of more like easier institutions, maybe, or simpler compared to like UN conventions that has been going on with like different stakeholders and different like blocks of countries working together. The Rome Statute is more like simplified version where you can actually just go to your government and they can influence. And I think that has a potential for youth around the world to actually like more have a contribution. While going to like UN meetings, it can be really hard to understand what you're actually doing there, since everything is like pre-negotiated and like parties are within the EU. Such a thing like it's a whole machine of bureaucracy. So there is hope that youth can actually have an impact in this, I think.
So I think that you said about that we have to acknowledge the impact that youth have as well. And sorry, my name is Tova Lundqvist. I'm from Ecocide Sweden. And I just came from the Youth Environment Assembly that we have in relation to Stockholm Plus 50. And we had a session with thank you. The climate minister, Annika Strandhäll.
Further away, apparently.
Further away. I was like, aren't you hearing me? We had a session with our minister, Strandhäll, who was addressing Ecocide Law. And I mean, she said that she is certain that we will actually discuss this during Stockholm Plus 50, and that is basically thanks to civil society and that demand from youth. And I thought that was just super, super strong, that the Swedish government now feel comfortable to address this question 50 years later after Olof Palme mentioned ecocide, just thanks to the impact from youth and civil society. So I think that we need to have that in mind entering Stockholm Plus 50 and during those days, and just keep up that hope, because this is really the time when we have to redefine our relationship to nature. And I don't think that we can change our behavior without an Ecocide law. So it's a great time to be here with all of you.
Sounds like a great concluding word.